Once again, you're tuned into Ham Radio Perspectives, where the two of us, who are old codgers, been in this hobby about 60 years apiece there, Tom, we offer you cant and superstition, which we think is true about amateur radio. So if you want to be in the know, which means to hold on to certain myths, follow us. Seriously, this topic is going to undo the myths, the 5 basic myths. I am Quinn, K8QS.
I'm Tom, WA9TDD.
Tom, dig in, buddy.
The first pervasive myth is that you must know Morse code to get a license. Not Morse codes, not Morse code, Morse code, like Samuel F.B. Morse. Well, this was a strict requirement for decades. Seems like eons.
Right.
The FCC completely eliminated the Morse code testing requirements for all license classes in 2007.
In the U.S.
In the U.S. Well, the FCC doesn't rule anything other than the U.S. So,
okay.
Internationally speaking, us Americans are now free from having to learn Morse code to get a license. It remains a highly popular, though, efficient and respected operating mode among enthusiasts, but is entirely optional for anyone looking to get on the air. The code has seen a resurgence in the QRP low power and OTA, parks on the air, summits on the air, so on and so forth. Although digital modes are probably replacing some CW on high frequency bands.
Right. I agree with that, Tom. And I would just add that for a lot of people, Morse code, like the SOS, did-it, da-da-da, did-it, is fun. So you may get into the hobby, and we hear from these people who don't have to take Morse code test. They get in, they try a little CW, they like it. The next myth about amateur radio we would like to bring up, we think it's out there more than the Morse code one, is you need a massive budget to get started. I hear this all the time from people when I talk to them about my hobby, because they're imagining times back and some relative, and they went into a room somewhere and there were 10,000 pieces of equipment over the wall and antennas coming through, and they think it's still like that. You know, little do they know you could have a little dinky rig and be operating it. While top tier transceivers and large tower installations, you know, into the heavens, can run into the thousands of dollars, the actual barrier to entry is remarkably low. This is not expensive to get into amateur radio unless you want to make it so. A basic handheld, or you could think of it as a walkie-talkie for higher frequencies, UHF, VHF, you can get one of those for $35 or so. Now, you may have to have some help in programming it with another person if you buy a real cheap model, so you get the right frequencies in there, but it's doable. Furthermore, many operators build highly effective wire antennas, this is Tom and I now, from inexpensive coaxial cable and hardware store material, making homebrew equipment a core part of the experience. We are cheap and we don't pay a lot of money for our antennas. As we explained in an earlier video, you can get an excellent used HF high frequency 1080 meter rig multi-mode transceiver for about $300. And we'll put a link to that video in the description so you can go in and check that out.
Right. And myth number 3, that getting a ham radio license requires an advanced technical degree to understand what it's all about. You know, the hobby certainly contains highly complex technical concepts, but the entry-level technician class license focuses on basic operating rules and fundamental electronics. Most operators learn the hands-on technical components like soldering coax connectors, analyzing standing wave ratios, configuring transceivers, or programming your HT through direct practice and community mentorship rather than formal education. Few hams build their own equipment from scratch anymore. Getting your license is your gateway to learning.
Well put. And even some of these things that Tom mentioned that you think, if you're not familiar with the terminology, are real complicated, they're not. That's one of the things we're trying to prove here on the channel. The fourth myth is the hobby called amateur or ham radio is entirely isolated. It's just a few people out there and it's fading away. So you have the stereotype of the solitary operator locked in a basement, cavernous place, and they ignore a massive, highly active community that's out there. Ham radio thrives on social and competing operating field days. Where they out in the field, they operate, put on emergency equipment and so forth. Contest weekends and local club deployments. The community has seen a continuous influx of new operators driven by what Tom and I and others like to call the maker movement, people who like to make things themselves. Also by emergency preparedness and open source hardware communities. That means software that's open for you to download, typically free or pay a very small amount, and to make changes on it as well. And then we've got ham fests. Sometimes parts of the country, they're called swap meets. They tend to be smaller than they used to be, except for the really big ones, like in Orlando in February, or Dayton in now Xenia in May, and Huntsville, Alabama. Much of the used equipment sales take place online now on some of the ham radio related websites like QRZ or QRZ, we would say, .com, and QTH. QTH means location.com, as well as you'll see a ton of ham stuff on eBay. So the hobby is not a bunch of these isolated people, and the hobby is not fading away, so there's not going to be anybody left. Just not true. Tom, what is the top myth about ham radio out there?
Oh, the top number 5 myth is that ham radio is completely obsolete because of smartphones. This is the most common misconception held by the general public. Well, cellular networks rely on fragile, interconnected grids of towers, servers, fiber optics that frequently fail during natural disasters or power grid issues. Our amateur radio relies solely on physics, science, and the operator's immediate equipment. Modern operators have a heavily integrated with computers through digital modes like FT8, JS8 call, mesh networks, amateur satellites, making it a constantly evolving communications frontier rather than a replacement, for a phone call. In fact, you can participate in some amateur radio channels using your smartphone to access channels and repeaters using special apps. When is the last time you randomly dialed some person and had a chat on your cell phone?
Doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen unless it's a spam call.
Right. And hams don't spam each other. So here's a marvelous way, using even your phone. Once you're licensed, you can get into some of the amateur radio networks and talk to people. You could even say, who's out there? Like when you were a kid and you had the walkie-talkie, and you hope there's somebody on that CB channel, even if you didn't know what CB is, running around the neighborhood, and you could say, do you hear me? Do you read me? Well, you can do that on a smartphone. You don't have to do it with that craziness that I just did, but you can do it. So these are 5 myths. We talk about the myths related to ham radio a lot because these are out there and they negatively affect people's view of amateur radio. And they keep people from investigating ham radio and potentially looking for a local club and getting licensed. So we hope you like what we just did. Give us a thumbs up, but also give us some comments, including things you think we got wrong or some of the myths beyond the 5 that we missed, because we are old and we forget as much as we learn these days. So we make some real problems. We consider ourselves kind of like Click and Clack, from the old radio show, Car Talk. We are dit and duh, and we won't tell you which is duh because actually it's both of us. So thank you for watching. I'm Quinn, K8QS.
I'm Tom, WA9TDD, and myth number 6 is not all hams are old men with beards.
Or goatees. Yeah, or that they don't keep themselves groomed carefully. Although if you go to a ham fest, you might change your opinion on that one. See you, everybody.